He was better, her mom sneered. I smiled, then let her go back to him, and walked out. A few days later, I found out what they had both been doing behind my back and filed a police report. Now my fiancé is begging for another chance. Sup, Reddit. I'm a patient guy. 6 months of patience, to be exact. Then I ran out. Name's Lucas, 31 male. I proposed to Presley on a Tuesday night. Got down on one knee. She cried. Said yes. For about 48 hours, I thought my life was actually heading somewhere good. Then we told her mother. Quick background. I grew up in a small town in Ohio, where my dad ran a welding shop and my mom worked dispatch for the county sheriff's office. Blue collar down to the bone. First person in my family to finish college. I worked 2 jobs through school, got my civil engineering degree with honors, while averaging 4 hours of sleep and consuming enough ramen to permanently alter my sodium levels. Now I design bridges and highway systems for a regional firm. Bought my own condo at 28. No debt except my truck payment. Never missed a deadline in 9 years of professional work. The kind of guy who shows up early, stays late, and doesn't complain about either. By most people's standards, a solid guy to marry. Not by Lorraine Whitfield's standards. The engagement announcement happened at her house. She answered the door wearing pearls at 3 in the afternoon on a Saturday. Full strand. Freshly polished. She looked at us, saw the ring on Presley's finger, and her face did this thing where the smile showed up about 3 seconds late. Oh, that's wonderful. The pause before wonderful lasted long enough to file taxes. Then she examined the ring like a pawnbroker, appraising stolen goods. Turned Presley's hand side to side. Squinted. Let the silence build until everyone in the room felt uncomfortable. Gavin would have gotten her a princess cut. This is very round. And there it was. First mention of the ghost who'd haunt my entire engagement. Gavin. Presley's ex from 3 years prior. The guy Lorraine apparently kept on standby like some kind of romantic insurance policy. I'd heard about him maybe twice from Presley herself. Ancient history. Didn't work out. They wanted different things. Nothing dramatic. But according to Lorraine, Gavin was Einstein, young Clooney, and whoever invented central heating rolled into one spectacular package of human achievement. My buddy Theo, who I'd known since sophomore year, started calling it the Gavin counter after I vented about the third family dinner. We hit double digits by month 2. The pattern became predictable. We'd visit. Lorraine would take a shot comparing me unfavorably to the ex. I'd absorb it. Presley would apologize in the car on the way home. Rinse and repeat. I told myself it was just one person. Presley's older brother Cole lived across the country and stayed out of family politics. Her grandmother was genuinely lovely. It was just Lorraine. But just Lorraine was exhausting. She criticized my job. Civil engineer, she said once, stretching the words like taffy. That's very practical. She made comments about my condo being small, my truck being blue collar, the fact that I didn't golf. Nothing explosive at first, just constant little digs. The kind that don't seem like much on their own, but pile up over time. I started dreading weekends. Started making excuses to work late on Fridays so we'd have less time at her house. Started feeling my jaw clench the moment we turned onto her street. My dentist asked if I'd been grinding my teeth. I told him only on weekends. And always, everything circled back to Gavin. The man was basically a religion at this point. Presley and I fought about Lorraine constantly. Not screaming matches. The slow burn kind where you have the same conversation 14 times without ever actually fixing anything. I'd say your mother compared me to your ex again. She'd say, I know, I'm sorry, she's just like that. I'd say, can you talk to her? She'd say, I've tried. She doesn't listen. I'd say, try harder. We'd go to bed frustrated and wake up pretending everything was fine. I'm a patient guy. I once spent 8 months dealing with a contractor who couldn't read blueprints without losing my temper. The man literally installed drainage pipes flowing uphill. I just calmly explained the basic principles of gravity, like I was teaching kindergarten. But patience has limits. Mine was running out faster than I wanted to admit. 3 months into the engagement, things with Lorraine escalated, like she sensed the wedding getting closer and decided to stop holding back. First, there was the bridal shower she hijacked. Presley's maid of honor, Vanessa, had planned a nice, low-key gathering at a restaurant downtown. Exactly what Presley requested. Small guest list, simple menu, no fuss. Lorraine showed up 45 minutes early with her own centerpieces in the trunk. Custom made. She rearranged the entire seating chart without asking anyone while the waitstaff watched in confusion. Then she stood up during appetizers and announced that the venue was beneath what her daughter deserved, but she supposed they were working with a limited budget. The room went quiet. Vanessa's face turned red. Half the guests stared at their plates. Vanessa later told me she'd never been so disrespected at an event she planned. Presley apologized to her mother for Vanessa's sensitivity. Not to Vanessa, to Lorraine. For Vanessa being upset about having her event publicly criticized. Then came the dress shopping incident. Lorraine vetoed 4 dresses before they even made it to the fitting room. Too plain, too flashy, wrong neckline, wrong silhouette. When Presley finally found one she genuinely loved, a simple A-line that actually made her smile, Lorraine looked at it like someone had asked her to admire a gas station sandwich. It's fine. 2 words. That's all she gave her daughter on what should have been a special moment. Presley bought it anyway, but she was quiet for 3 days afterward. Every small victory came with a price. Then there was the dinner with my parents. My folks drove in from 2 states over. First time meeting Lorraine. Made reservations at a nice place. Neutral territory. I briefed my parents on keeping things light. Told them Lorraine could be intense but meant well. I was completely delusional. Lorraine spent the entire meal interrogating my mother about our family's financial history. Asked pointed questions about my father's retirement investments, whether they owned their home outright, what kind of neighborhood they lived in. My mom tried to change the subject twice. Asked about the restaurant's history. Complimented the bread. Lorraine steamrolled right through both attempts like they were speed bumps. My dad, who built his welding business from nothing and still has the calluses to prove it, sat there eating his pasta with the look of a man actively choosing not to flip a table. Then, when my mom mentioned she was proud of me for buying my condo young, Lorraine smiled with all the warmth of a February wind. Well, Gavin owned 2 properties by that age, commercial and residential, but I'm sure your son is doing his best with what he has. The silence at that table could have been bottled and sold as awkwardness concentrate. In the parking lot afterward, my mom pulled me aside. Honey, are you sure about this? I told her Presley was worth it, that Lorraine was temporary. My mom nodded, didn't argue, but I could tell she didn't believe a word of it. My dad's take was more direct. Watch yourself with that one. Didn't specify which one. Didn't need to. By month 4, we were fighting more than we were getting along. Greatest hits from Lorraine included the time she asked if my college even had real accreditation, the time she wondered aloud if my condo had enough room for children or if we'd have to raise them in a closet, and the time she introduced me to her book club friends as Presley's current situation. One night after a brutal dinner where Lorraine spent 45 minutes discussing Gavin's recent promotion like he was still part of the family. I tried to have a real conversation about it. I told Presley I needed her to pick a side, not in some dramatic ultimatum way, not asking her to cut her mother off, just an acknowledgement that what her mother was doing was wrong, that she saw it, that she was on my team when it mattered. She sat on the edge of our bed and looked at me like I'd asked her to solve differential equations in her head. You don't get it. My relationship with my mom is complicated. It's always been complicated. I can't just flip a switch and change everything. Okay, so when then? I asked. How long before she stops comparing me to your ex? When do I get to be treated like an actual person instead of some disappointment she's putting up with? She never had an answer. That was the problem. Presley turned 29 in early May. Lorraine insisted on throwing her a party at the house. Translation: she wanted complete control over every detail, every guest, every moment of her daughter's special day. The morning of the party, I had a bad feeling. Nothing I could point to specifically. Just this gut sense that something was about to go sideways. I mentioned it to Theo when he called to confirm he was still driving down. You're being paranoid, he said. After 6 months with Lorraine, paranoid is just another word for prepared. I'd spent 2 weeks tracking down Presley's gift. She'd mentioned wanting this specific vintage record player she'd seen online months ago. Limited edition, fully restored, beautiful walnut finish with original brass hardware from the 1960s. The kind of thing you don't just find on Amazon. The kind of thing that requires actual effort to track down. Found one through a collector in Portland. Paid more than I probably should have. Had it shipped with insurance that cost almost as much as the shipping itself. Spent a whole Saturday testing every function to make sure it worked perfectly. Even tracked down a first pressing of her favorite album to go with it. The party started fine. Normal enough. Lorraine's friends making small talk about their renovations and vacations. Their kids' college applications. Their upcoming trips to places I'd never been. Standard suburban crowd. I stayed near the food table and tried to blend in. One of Lorraine's friends asked what I did for a living. Pleasant enough woman. Genuine smile. When I said civil engineer, she nodded with what seemed like real interest. Started asking about bridge design. Then Lorraine jumped in from across the room. He designs roads mostly. Very salt-of-the-earth work. Like I was a medieval peasant who happened to own a computer. The woman's smile flickered. She excused herself shortly after. The look on Presley's face when she opened my gift was exactly what I'd hoped for. Eyes going wide, real smile, that little gasp she does when something catches her off guard. Oh my God, this is perfect. I can't believe you actually remembered. For about 30 seconds, everything felt right. This was why I was doing all of it. These moments, this person, this future we were building together. Then Lorraine walked over. She looked at the record player, looked at me. That's interesting. Very kitsch. She said kitsch the way most people say cockroach. Gavin always gave her jewelry, though, something she could actually wear outside the house. I kept my voice level. Good thing I'm not Gavin. Lorraine's smile didn't reach her eyes. Obviously not. I was still processing that when I noticed someone across the room who absolutely should not have been there. Tall guy, dark hair, expensive polo shirt, standing by the refreshments table like he owned the place. Presley saw him at the same moment. Her face went through confusion, recognition, and panic in about 2 seconds flat. That was Gavin, the legendary Gavin. Standing in the living room at my fiancé's birthday party, I looked at Lorraine. She was watching us with barely hidden satisfaction. Oh, didn't I mention? I ran into Gavin at the country club last week. Thought it would be lovely for them to catch up. There it was. She'd invited my fiancé's ex-boyfriend without telling either of us. On purpose. Theo materialized next to me holding a plate of appetizers. Dude, tell me that's not who I think it is. It is. On a scale of 1 to signing her up for 200 timeshare brochures, where are we at? I'm thinking Scientology mailing lists. I made it through the rest of the party. Barely. Smiled when I was supposed to smile. Made small talk with people I didn't know. Pretended not to notice Lorraine steering Gavin toward Presley every chance she got. At one point, she literally took Presley's arm and walked her over to where Gavin was standing by the fireplace. Left me holding 2 drinks nobody wanted. One of Lorraine's friends actually gave me a pitying look. Oh, Gavin, you simply have to tell Presley about your promotion. Gavin, didn't you two used to love that restaurant downtown? Gavin, remember that weekend you surprised her in Vermont? The worst part wasn't Gavin himself. The guy seemed uncomfortable half the time. The worst part was watching Presley smile and nod and play along while her mother ran the whole show. Not once did she pull away. After the last guest left, and it was just me, Presley, and Lorraine in the living room, surrounded by wrapping paper and dirty dishes, I said what I'd been holding back for 6 months. Lorraine was loading plates into the dishwasher like I wasn't even there. Like I was furniture that had overstayed its welcome. You invited him on purpose. She didn't look up. I don't know what you mean. You knew exactly what you were doing. You've known what you were doing since the day I proposed. She finally turned around. Her smile could cut glass. Embarrass you? Honey, I don't need to embarrass you. You do that just fine on your own. Presley stepped between us, looking panicked. Can we please not do this right now? It's my birthday. I turned to her. Your mother invited your ex-boyfriend to your birthday party. Without telling you. Without telling me. She spent the whole night pushing you two together. Does that seem normal to you? She didn't answer. Just stood there, wringing her hands. Lorraine jumped in. Gavin is an old family friend. He was practically part of this family for 3 years. Unlike some people, he knows how to conduct himself. You've been comparing me to him since the day I proposed. Nothing I do is good enough. Tonight you looked at my gift and called it kitsch. Lorraine dropped all pretense. Because it's true. Presley deserves better than average. Someone with real ambition. Someone who can give her the life she was meant to have. I turned to Presley, my fiancée. The woman I defended to my own family. The woman I'd spent 6 months absorbing insults for. Are you going to say anything? She looked at me. Looked at her mother. Back at me. I could see her weighing options. Figuring out which relationship mattered more right now. And instead of defending me, instead of finally saying something after 6 months of silence, she said the words that ended us. She's got a point, okay? Maybe if you actually tried harder, she wouldn't think you're so pathetic. Maybe if you did something impressive for once, she'd have something nice to say. The room went dead silent. Even Lorraine looked slightly surprised. Like she'd been hoping to win but hadn't expected a total knockout. Pathetic. 6 months of trying. 6 months of patience. 6 months of smiling through insults and telling myself it would get better. All of that gone because of a single word from the person who was supposed to have my back. I nodded. Felt something cold settle in my chest. Cool. Good to know where I stand. I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out the wedding band I'd been carrying for weeks. Custom made. Her grandmother's birthstone set into the band because Presley had mentioned once, early in our relationship, that she wished she had something to remember her by after she passed. 2 months of savings, hours of research finding the right jeweler, weeks of anticipation waiting for the perfect moment to show her. I set the ring on the coffee table, right next to a coaster Lorraine had complained about the last time I visited. Here, for all the stuff you won't have to settle for anymore. Then I walked out without looking back. Didn't slam the door, didn't yell, didn't give Lorraine the satisfaction of a scene she could twist into a story about my temper later. Just a clean exit. Got in my truck and drove home through empty streets. Didn't remember a single turn I made. Just autopilot and silence and that weird calm that comes after something breaks. Theo called around midnight. What do you need? Right now, nothing. But check in tomorrow. I might need help moving her stuff out. Presley texted the next morning. Said she was sorry. Said she didn't mean it. Said her mother pushed her too far and she snapped. Said she loved me and we could work through this together if I just gave her another chance. Classic morning after regret from someone who finally showed their true colors and didn't like what they saw. I didn't respond because there was genuinely nothing left to say. She called. Voicemail. She showed up at my condo that afternoon. Knocked for 15 minutes straight. I sat on my couch 12 feet away and didn't answer. Just listened to her knock, then beg, then finally give up. Watched through the peephole as she walked away, looking smaller than I'd ever seen her. Shoulders hunched, head down. Then went back to packing her stuff into boxes. Theo came over that evening to help. The apartment was mine, lease in my name, all my furniture. But Presley had things everywhere after almost a year together. Her shampoo in the shower, her toothbrush in the holder, her coffee mug still in the sink from 2 mornings ago, when everything had been normal. We boxed it all up. No cutting up clothes or throwing things away. No dramatic gestures that would feel good for 5 minutes and stupid forever after. I just wanted her gone from my space. We're really not going to do anything? Theo taped a box shut. That woman made your life miserable for 6 months. And Presley just sat there and let it happen. What do you want me to do? Egg her house? I have a spreadsheet of ideas. It's pretty comprehensive, alphabetized and everything, cross-referenced by cost, legal risk, and satisfaction level. I almost smiled. File that away. We might need it later. 4 days after the breakup, something unexpected happened. I got a LinkedIn message from Gavin. I stared at the notification for a solid minute before opening it. What could Presley's legendary ex possibly have to say that I wanted to hear? The guy who'd been held up as my replacement all evening. The ghost I'd been losing to for 6 months. But curiosity is powerful. The message said, "Hey, I know this is weird, but I think we should talk. What happened at that party wasn't what you think. There's something you need to know. Coffee? My treat." I read it 3 times. Looked for the catch. The trap. Then I said yes. We met at a coffee shop across town. Gavin showed up looking uncomfortable, which made 2 of us. He didn't waste time. Lorraine hit me up about 3 weeks before that party. Said Presley wanted to reconnect. Made it sound like you two were having problems and Presley was having second thoughts about the engagement. I leaned back. Lorraine told you Presley wanted you there? I hadn't talked to Presley in over 2 years. We ended things and moved on. But Lorraine made it seem like she was reaching out on her daughter's behalf. Said Presley was too embarrassed to contact me herself. Why would you believe that? Gavin looked down at his coffee. Turned the cup in his hands. Because Lorraine pulled the exact same thing when I was dating Presley. That's why we actually broke up. Not because we wanted different things. Not because we grew apart. Because Lorraine made it impossible to stay. She compared me to some ex before me. A guy named Warren who apparently owned 3 businesses by 25 and walked on water in his spare time. I laughed. Nothing funny about it. Sounds familiar. He told me everything. How Lorraine had sabotaged his entire 3-year relationship. How she'd manufactured problems out of nothing. How she'd turned every holiday, every dinner, every family gathering into an opportunity to remind him he wasn't good enough. She'd call Presley after every visit and spend an hour pointing out everything I'd done wrong, Gavin said. The way I sat, the way I talked, whether I'd complimented the right things in the house, whether I'd brought the right gift. It was like she was keeping a scorecard nobody else could see. And somehow I was always losing. Same playbook. Then he told me the part that made my blood run cold. Lorraine had contacted his employer 2 months ago. Anonymous complaint about his job performance. Claimed he'd been unprofessional with clients. Made allegations about his conduct that were completely made up. He'd only found out because his manager thought the whole thing smelled wrong and did some digging into where the complaint came from. She tried to mess with your job? She tried to mess with both of us. He looked me straight in the eye. Steady. Serious. I did some checking after I figured out what she was doing. Made some calls to people I know. She's been sending stuff to your company too. Anonymous complaints claiming you're unprofessional, that you missed deadlines, had conflicts with your team, that you were unreliable. The room tilted. What? Nothing stuck because you've got a solid reputation, and your boss apparently didn't buy any of it. But she tried. Multiple times. Different email addresses. Different angles. I sat there processing. Lorraine hadn't just been making snide comments at dinner parties. She hadn't just been comparing me unfavorably to past boyfriends. She'd been actively working to destroy my career, to make me unemployable, to get rid of me through financial ruin if the emotional stuff didn't work fast enough. Every smile she'd given me at those dinners, every time she'd said welcome to the family, every moment I'd tried to be patient and understanding and give her the benefit of the doubt, all of it happening while she was sending emails designed to get me fired. Why? What does she even get out of this? Gavin shrugged. Control. Presley's her only daughter. Maybe she can't stand sharing her. Maybe she needs Presley dependent and single so she has someone to manage. I stopped trying to figure out what's wrong with her years ago. I just know how she operates. And she's been doing this for a long time. He paused. There's one more thing. And I went back and forth on whether to even tell you this. I waited. After Lorraine reached out to me about the party, I got curious. Did some digging through old messages, old texts I'd never deleted. Turns out Presley had been texting me during your relationship. Nothing romantic, but she'd vent about you, about how her mother didn't approve, about how she wasn't sure you were the right fit, about how maybe she'd made a mistake saying yes. Silence. She never told you she was in contact with me, did she? No, she hadn't. Not once. Not even a hint. I didn't respond to most of them, Gavin said. I'd moved on, had my own life, but she kept reaching out every few months, usually after fights with her mom, usually when she was feeling guilty about not defending you. She'd send these messages about how hard everything was, how she felt stuck. He stood to leave, paused at the edge of the table. For what it's worth, I'm sorry you went through this. And I'm engaged now, to someone whose mother is actually a normal human being. So the birthday party thing was completely out of line. I never wanted to be there. I thought I was helping. I watched him walk out, sat there for another 20 minutes, coffee going cold, brain running through every moment of the past year with new information. Presley had been texting her ex the entire time, venting about me, questioning our engagement, running to him whenever things got hard, while I was bending over backward trying to make it work. Then I called Theo. Remember when you said you wanted to do something with style? I've got an idea. The first thing I did was call a lawyer. Theo thought I was being overly cautious, said we should just post everything on social media and let the internet handle it. But I'd spent enough years in engineering to know that documentation matters. You do it right, with evidence and paper trails, or you don't do it at all. The attorney's name was Maggie, mid-50s, specialized in employment and civil litigation, the kind of lawyer who'd clearly seen enough human behavior over the years to stop being surprised by any of it. I laid everything out. The 6 months of harassment, the birthday party ambush, Gavin's information about the employer complaints, the email trails he'd provided. She listened without interrupting, took notes, asked sharp questions at exactly the right moments. Then she looked at the documentation and said the words I needed to hear. You have a case. She explained tortious interference with business relationships. Defamation per se, since Lorraine's claims about my professional conduct were provably false and had been made to my employer specifically to cause harm. The email trail was solid. The timestamps showed a clear pattern. Maggie said going to court was one option. Expensive and slow, but potentially satisfying. The other option was a formal cease and desist demanding she stop immediately, plus notice that all evidence had been preserved. I chose the letter, but I asked her to help with something else too. Lorraine had built her entire social identity around a local women's professional network. I'd learned this from Cole, Presley's brother. He'd reached out after hearing about the breakup, wanting to apologize for his mother's behavior. Said he'd seen it happen before and always felt guilty for not speaking up. We'd talked for about an hour. 8 years on their advisory board, he told me. Charity events, fundraising galas, speeches about mentorship and ethical leadership and supporting other women's careers. Her reputation in that community was everything to her, the thing she protected above all else. Cole's exact words. She cares more about how she looks than anything real. Her image is her whole identity. Take that away and there's nothing left. The network had an annual charity gala coming up in about 10 days. Big event. Local business leaders. Community recognition awards. Press coverage. Lorraine was scheduled to give the keynote speech about supporting other women's professional development. The irony was almost too perfect. I asked Maggie if we could send a copy of the cease and desist, along with all the documentation, to the board as well. Not as a formal legal complaint, just a heads up that someone scheduled to speak about professional integrity had been sabotaging other people's employment through fake complaints. Let them make their own decision with the facts in front of them. Maggie raised an eyebrow. Are you sure about this? Once it's sent, there's no taking it back. If she's giving speeches about ethics while doing this behind the scenes, those people deserve to know. She nodded. We can do that. What she did was calculated and ongoing. Most people don't have the documentation you have. Use it. The package went out Thursday. Certified mail to Lorraine with return receipt requested. A separate packet to the board, marked for their ethics committee. Gavin had provided copies of the emails with routing information, records of when Lorraine contacted him pretending to speak for Presley, screenshots with timestamps. I added my own documentation, HR confirmation that anonymous complaints had been received and dismissed, with dates matching Lorraine's pattern. Everything professional. Then I waited. The cease and desist arrived at Lorraine's house Monday. The board received their packet the same day. By Wednesday, Maggie called to tell me the ethics committee had contacted her office asking for more details. They were taking it seriously. Emergency meeting scheduled for Saturday morning. The gala happened Saturday evening. I wasn't there, but Theo's college roommate worked for the event planning company. He sent updates throughout the night. Lorraine arrived in a gown, worked the room like she owned it, accepted compliments on her upcoming speech, made the rounds shaking hands, air-kissing cheeks, the performance of a lifetime. Then a board member approached her. Quiet conversation in the corner. Lorraine's smile freezing. More board members joining. The conversation getting less quiet. Heads started turning. That buzz you get when something's about to go wrong in public. She was asked to step away from the podium before her speech began. Serious concerns about conduct unbecoming of a leadership position. She tried to give the speech anyway. Started walking toward the microphone like nothing had happened. Security walked her to the exit. The fallout was immediate. Word travels fast in those communities. By Sunday morning, Lorraine's name was being discussed in group chats she wasn't part of. By Monday, 3 of her regular lunch friends had suddenly become very busy for the foreseeable future. Maggie forwarded me a response from Lorraine's attorney Monday afternoon. Formal apology letter acknowledging the inappropriate communications and promising to cease all such conduct immediately. No admission of guilt, because lawyers never allow that, but acknowledgement nonetheless. 3 pages of legal speak that basically translated to, my client got caught and would very much like to not get sued. My company received a similar letter. HR showed it to me with raised eyebrows and obvious curiosity about what exactly had happened. My boss asked if I wanted to pursue further action. I said no. The apology was enough. The truth being on record was enough. Cole called me later that week. Said his mother had been officially removed from the board. 8 years of reputation. Gone in a single evening. Her lunch friends had scattered like roaches when the lights came on. What did you tell her when she called crying about it? That she should have thought about consequences before she tried to destroy people's lives. First time I've ever stood up to her. He paused. She did the same thing to my wife, you know. Anonymous complaints to her graduate program, claiming she cheated on exams. That's why we moved across the country. I didn't know that. Nobody did. You're the first person who actually did something about it. All those months thinking I was the problem. Turned out I was just the latest in a long line. The first one who refused to disappear quietly. 3 months passed. Life started looking like something worth living again. I threw myself into work and got assigned as lead engineer on a major bridge rehabilitation project. Complex, multi-year job requiring total focus. The kind of work where people's lives depend on your calculations being right. Doesn't leave room for dwelling on the past. My boss pulled me aside after the assignment was announced. Said he'd heard about the Lorraine situation through the HR grapevine. Said the anonymous complaints she'd sent had been so obviously fake, so clearly written by someone who had no idea how engineering worked, that they'd actually made him trust me more. Sometimes the universe throws you a small win. The first few weeks were still rough. I'd catch myself checking my phone for texts that weren't coming, reaching for someone who wasn't there anymore. Once I almost called her to share something funny that happened at work before I remembered we weren't doing that anymore. But gradually, day by day, it got easier. Spent weekends actually enjoying being alone instead of dreading the next performance at Lorraine's house. Theo and I started watching the worst-rated movies we could find and competing to predict the plot twists. I was winning. He claimed his losses were strategic, part of some larger plan he refused to explain. Adopted a dog from the shelter because my condo was too quiet. Scruffy mutt with one ear that didn't quite stand upright and way too much energy for a one-bedroom apartment. Named him Bridges because I'm exactly that corny. Also because he kept trying to walk across the back of the couch like it was a structural beam he was inspecting. Funny thing about getting out of a toxic situation. You don't realize how bad it was until you're out of it. I started sleeping better, eating actual meals instead of whatever required the least effort. My shoulders weren't constantly tensed, waiting for the next criticism. The Presley situation faded to background noise. She stopped calling after the first few weeks. Heard through Cole she'd moved back in with Lorraine while she figured things out, which told me everything about where her priorities were. Some people never break the cycle. Some people don't want to. Then, on a random Thursday evening in August, there was a knock on my door. I wasn't expecting anyone. Theo was out of town for work. Pizza wasn't due for another 20 minutes. Bridges lifted his head from his bed and gave me a look that said he wasn't sure about any of this. Checked the peephole. Presley. She looked different. Exhausted. Dark circles under her eyes, like she hadn't slept well in weeks. She was holding herself like someone who'd been through something hard and hadn't bounced back. The confident woman I'd proposed to on that random Tuesday morning was gone. I opened the door, but didn't invite her in. Stood in the frame with one hand on the doorknob. Bridges sat behind me. She started talking immediately, words tumbling out like she'd rehearsed this speech 100 times on the drive over. I cut my mom off. Completely. After what she did, after what came out, I couldn't defend her anymore. Cole told me everything. The emails. The complaints to your job. I had no idea she was doing any of that. I swear. I leaned against the doorframe. Didn't say anything. She ruined everything. All those years, all those relationships, and I never saw it. I thought she was just being protective. I didn't know she was actively trying to destroy people. Still nothing from me. I know I messed up. I know what I said was awful. I've thought about it every single day since. Please, can we start over? Without her in the picture? Her eyes were wet. Real tears. She believed what she was saying. Really thought this could work. I let the silence sit between us for a long moment. You called me pathetic. I know. In front of her. After 6 months of me taking every insult she threw. And the one time you opened your mouth to say something, it was to agree with her. I was scared. She was my mother. I didn't know how to... That's not my problem anymore. I straightened up from the doorframe. You cut her off now because she got publicly humiliated and the truth came out. But I showed you who she was for 6 months. I asked you to set boundaries. I asked you to stand up for me even once. And you chose her. Every single time. That's not fair. Also, I kept my voice level. Calm. Gavin told me about the texts. Her face went white. You were messaging your ex the entire time we were together, while I was bending over backward trying to make this work. That wasn't... I was just confused. I didn't know what to... You want to know what's not fair? Finding out my fiancé was running to her ex behind my back while I was getting destroyed by her mother in public. That's not fair. She opened her mouth. Nothing came out. We're done. Don't come back here. I started to close the door. Wait. Her voice cracked. So that's it? Everything we had and you can just walk away like it meant nothing? I paused. The record player's in a box by the dumpster if you want it. You're really going to be like this? Like what? Like somebody who knows his worth? I shrugged. Yeah, turns out I am. Closed the door. Stood there for a second, listening to her cry on the other side. Then footsteps down the hallway. Lorraine lost her position, her reputation, and her relationship with both her kids. Cole hadn't spoken to her in months. Presley finally saw the pattern, but only after it cost her everything she thought she wanted. Me? For the first time in over a year, I don't have to prove myself to someone who was never going to accept the proof anyway. That's everything. Guys, we are so close to hit 100,000 subscribers on this channel. If you are not subscribed to the channel, please consider subscribing. It really helps hit that 100,000 mark. Thanks for making this dream come true. You're not man enough to be a dad. My wife said after I found out she'd been lying about our fertility issues. So I quietly ran the tests, found the truth, and turned her little double life into a court exhibit. All right, Reddit. Figured it was time to share this nightmare from my life because apparently I need strangers on the internet to validate that I'm not insane. This whole thing went down over the course of 2 years and ended about 3 months ago. Still processing it, honestly. And my best friend keeps telling me this needs to be documented somewhere, because apparently it's one of the most calculated situations he's ever heard of. So here we are. I'm 32, work as an aerospace engineer at a defense contractor here in Arizona. Been with the same company for 7 years. Moved up from junior engineer to senior project lead. Good salary. Own my house outright after refinancing at the perfect time. Drive a paid-off 2019 F-150 that I actually maintain properly with scheduled oil changes and everything. Nothing flashy, just solid and dependable. I'm the guy who shows up on time, pays his bills early, keeps his truck clean, and actually reads instruction manuals before assembling furniture. Revolutionary concept, I know. My life is structured. Always has been. I meal prep on Sundays, hit the gym 4 days a week, keep a budget spreadsheet that would make accountants weep with joy. Some people called it boring when I was younger. I call it having my life together. At 32, I've got a house, retirement accounts that are actually funded, and zero debt except the mortgage, which I'm paying extra on every month. I'm not rich, but I'm comfortable, and I worked hard to get here. Met my now ex-wife Olivia back in 2019 at a charity run for veterans. She was volunteering at the water station around mile marker 4, and I was running my usual 10-kilometer route. She handed me a cup and made some joke about me looking like I needed it more than the other runners. I was drenched in sweat because it was June in Arizona, and I stupidly wore a dark shirt. We started talking while I caught my breath, and she mentioned she'd wanted to do the run, but hadn't trained enough. I offered to help her train for the next one. We exchanged numbers that day, started texting. She seemed cool, funny, had this way of making regular conversation interesting. Our first actual date was at this Italian place downtown. She showed up in a sundress and I'd worn actual slacks instead of jeans, so we both got points for effort. We talked for 3 hours. She laughed at my engineering jokes, which nobody ever does. I made her laugh so hard she snorted, which she got embarrassed about, but I thought it was cute. Olivia worked as a dental hygienist at a practice downtown, made decent money, had her own apartment, drove a reliable Honda Civic, seemed to have her life together. No crazy debt, no drama with exes, good relationship with her family. On paper, she was exactly what I'd been looking for after a string of relationships that went nowhere. We dated for about a year before I proposed. Took her to this overlook outside Sedona that we'd hiked to on one of our early dates. Had the ring custom made because she'd mentioned once that she thought solitaire diamonds were boring and wanted something with colored stones. Got her an emerald surrounded by small diamonds in a platinum setting. Cost me 3 months' salary, but her face when she saw it made it worth every penny. The wedding was in fall 2020. Small ceremony because of everything going on that year. Just family and close friends at her parents' ranch outside Tucson. Her dad owns about 40 acres of property with this old barn they'd renovated into an event space. We did the whole thing outdoors, about 50 people total. I wore the suit I'd bought specifically for the occasion, navy blue with a light blue tie. She wore her grandmother's wedding dress that had been altered to fit her. The photos turned out great. Her parents loved me from day one. Her dad, Frank, is this retired firefighter who got me into woodworking. We'd spend Saturday mornings in his shop building furniture and talking about everything from sports to politics. Her mom, Janet, treated me like the son she never had, always sending me home with leftovers and asking my opinion on recipes she was trying out. I genuinely liked them. Thought I'd gotten lucky marrying into a good family. The honeymoon was 2 weeks in Costa Rica. We stayed at this eco-lodge in the rainforest and spent our days hiking and ziplining and pretending we were adventurous people. She took about 1,000 photos. I got a wicked sunburn on day 3 because I'm pale and forgot to reapply sunscreen. We laughed about it then. Different times. First year of marriage was pretty standard. We bought a house together in Gilbert. 3-bedroom, 2-bath with a garage I could actually fit my truck in. The backyard had mature trees and a covered patio. We spent weekends painting rooms and picking out furniture. She wanted the extra bedrooms for when we had kids. That was always the plan, at least according to her. She'd talk about converting one into a nursery, point out houses with playground equipment, mention how our street was perfect for raising children. I was all in on the idea. Around spring 2021, she started bringing up kids more seriously. Not pushy at first, just casual mentions about timelines. She'd point out cute kids at restaurants, send me articles about optimal age for first-time parents. I was all for it. Figured we were financially stable. The house had the space. I'd always wanted to be a dad. We started trying that summer. Stopped using protection and let nature do its thing. Olivia tracked everything on apps, though. Knew her cycles down to the hour, took her temperature every morning. She had this whole system with charts and predictions. Looking back, it was all theater, but at the time I thought she was being thorough. Months went by. Nothing. She'd get disappointed every time her period showed up. I'd tell her these things take time. Most couples don't get pregnant immediately. Average couple takes 6 months to a year. She knew that intellectually but emotionally she was getting stressed. By early 2022, she was talking about seeing a doctor. Made complete sense to me. I'm an engineer. I believe in diagnostics. So I scheduled an appointment with my GP for fertility testing. Told Olivia about the appointment. She seemed supportive at first. The appointment was set for a Thursday afternoon. Wednesday night, Olivia suddenly says we should wait. Says it's too soon, insurance won't cover it, we should give it another 6 months naturally. She pulled up articles about insurance requirements. Had a whole presentation ready. I canceled the appointment. Seemed reasonable to wait if insurance wouldn't cover it anyway. 6 months later, fall 2022, still nothing. She's getting more upset, crying when her period starts. Real tears. Genuine seeming distress. I suggest the doctor again. Again, she says to wait. This time she's read about couples who got pregnant after they stopped stressing about it. Shows me forum posts about stress affecting fertility. Says maybe we should take a break from actively trying. I'm noticing a pattern, but trying to be supportive. She's the one who has to carry the kid, so I figure she gets to call the shots on doctors. Biggest mistake of my life. We take the supposed break. Stop timing everything. She seems relieved, less stressed. By spring 2023, we'd been trying for almost 2 years. I brought up adoption, and she shot it down immediately. Said she wanted to experience pregnancy. Wanted that biological connection. Fair enough. Then one night in May 2023, we're having dinner and she just loses it. Starts crying into her pasta primavera, saying she feels broken, that her body's failing us, that maybe we should just accept we'll never have kids. Real dramatic stuff, tissues everywhere, mascara running. I'm trying to comfort her, saying we'll figure it out together. Maybe we finally need to see that specialist. Maybe it's time to stop waiting and get real answers. That's when she drops this bomb. Maybe it's not me. Maybe you're the problem. I'm caught off guard because she'd never directly blamed me before. All the stress had been framed as her body not cooperating, her failing to get pregnant, her issues. Never mine. I ask what she means, and she says, maybe I should get tested first before we put her through invasive fertility treatments. That actually makes sense logically, so I agree. Men's testing is way less invasive than women's, just a simple test, no big deal. She gets this weird look on her face, like she didn't expect me to just say yes without pushing back. Then she backpedals hard, says she didn't mean it like that she's just emotional, that we should wait until she's in a better headspace to deal with doctors. Says she spoke out of frustration and didn't mean to point fingers at me. Red flag number whatever at this point, but I'm still in supportive husband mode. I tell her it's fine. I'll get tested whenever she's ready, no pressure. She seems relieved and changes the subject to some show she wants to watch. We finish dinner and don't talk about it again. Summer 2023, things are tense between us. She's still supposedly tracking her cycle, and we're still supposedly trying, but something feels fundamentally off. She's distant, emotionally checked out, goes to bed earlier than me most nights, spends a lot of time on her phone, typing away at something with this little smile I haven't seen directed at me in months. When I ask if everything's okay, she says she's just stressed about the baby situation and work drama. Her work drama was apparently pretty intense. She'd come home complaining about office politics, about the dentist being difficult, about patients being rude. I'd listen and try to be supportive, but it all felt surface level, like she was going through the motions of being married without actually being present in the marriage. We stopped having the kind of deep conversations we used to have. Used to talk for hours about everything and nothing. Now it was just logistics. Who's picking up dinner? Did you pay the electric bill? We need to get the AC serviced. Roommate energy, not spouse energy. Then in August, I come home early from work because they cut us loose at noon on a Friday before Labor Day weekend. The project deadline we'd been grinding on got moved back a week, so management decided to give everyone a long weekend. I texted Olivia to let her know I'd be home early, see if she wanted to grab lunch together. She didn't respond, which wasn't unusual since she sometimes had back-to-back appointments. I pull into our driveway around 12:30, and her car is there, which is unusual because she normally works until 5. I figure maybe she's sick or had the same early release situation I did. I walk in and the house is quiet. No TV on, no music, just quiet. Her purse is on the kitchen counter, her shoes by the door. I'm about to call out to her when I hear her voice coming from our bedroom. She's on the phone, and she's laughing. Really laughing in a way I haven't heard in months. That genuine, full laugh she used to do when we first started dating, before everything got complicated and stressful. I'm not trying to eavesdrop initially. I'm just walking down the hallway toward our room to let her know I'm home. But something about her tone makes me stop. She sounds happy. More than happy. She sounds like she's talking to someone who makes her feel alive. Then she says something that makes me stop dead in my tracks. I know. I know. He still has no idea. It's honestly impressive at this point. I freeze in the hallway about 10 feet from our bedroom door. My brain is trying to process what I just heard. He has no idea about what. I'm standing there like an idiot, holding my work bag, trying to decide if I heard that correctly or if I'm paranoid. She's quiet for a minute, listening to whoever's on the other end. I can hear her moving around in the bedroom, probably pacing like she does when she's on the phone. Then she says, "No, he actually suggested getting tested a few months ago. I talked him out of it." Can you imagine? The whole thing would have blown up right there. My heart is pounding. Getting tested. She's talking about the fertility testing. She talked me out of it because something would have blown up? What would have blown up? What am I not supposed to know? She laughs again, that same carefree laugh. Exactly. Yeah, you're right. I should just tell him eventually. But the timing never feels right. And honestly, things are easier this way. Less complicated. Right. I back out of the hallway as quietly as I can, go sit in my truck in the driveway for a solid 20 minutes, trying to process what I just heard. My hands are shaking. I feel nauseous. Every instinct is telling me something majorly wrong is happening, but I can't quite piece together what. When I finally go back inside, I make sure to make noise. Close the door loudly, drop my keys on the counter, call out that I'm home early. Olivia comes out of the bedroom acting completely normal. Big smile, asks about my day, mentions she got off early too and was just catching up on some phone calls with friends. Asks if I want to order takeout for lunch. I'm watching her perform this totally normal wife routine and thinking about what I just heard. She's seamless. No guilt, no nervousness, just acting like everything is fine. We order sandwiches from this place she likes. Eat lunch together on the couch while watching some renovation show. She's commenting on the design choices, completely relaxed. That night, lying in bed next to her, I can't sleep. Can't stop thinking about that phone call. He still has no idea. The whole thing would have blown up. Things are easier this way. What is she hiding? What don't I know? I spend the weekend pretending everything's normal while my brain is running through possibilities. Is she cheating? Is there something medically wrong she's not telling me? Is there some other secret I'm not seeing? Nothing makes complete sense, but all the pieces feel important. I don't say anything about what I heard. Not yet. I need to think about this strategically because clearly something major is going on, and I need to know what I'm dealing with before I make a move. I'm an engineer. I solve problems methodically. Step 1 is gathering data. That weekend, I start paying closer attention to everything. Her phone is never out of her sight anymore. It's always face down on the counter, always in her pocket, always with her. She's got new passwords on everything. I know because I used to know her phone code, and now it's different. Used to know her laptop password, and that's changed too. When I mention maybe going out with my friend Kevin from work, she encourages it enthusiastically, almost pushy about it. Says I should go, have fun, take my time. Before, she'd sometimes get a little pouty about me having guy nights. Now she's practically shoving me out the door. That's when I realize she wants me gone, wants the house to herself. Monday morning, I call my doctor's office and schedule that fertility test I'd tried to schedule over a year ago. The receptionist remembers me because I'd canceled last time. I tell her I want to reschedule and she gets me in for Thursday afternoon. I don't tell Olivia. This one's just for me to know. I take a long lunch that Thursday, drive to the doctor's office, fill out the paperwork. The nurse takes me back and explains the process. It's straightforward, not invasive, nothing complicated. Just a test to check sperm count, motility, morphology, all the standard metrics for male fertility. I provide the sample, they send it to the lab, results in about 10 days. Those 10 days are torture. I'm going through the motions at work and at home, but my brain is stuck on what those results might show. Part of me is hoping they'll show something wrong, because at least that would explain the 2 years of failure. But another part of me is terrified that they'll show I'm fine, because that means something else is going on. Results come back the following Thursday. I'm sitting in the doctor's office and he's looking at the printout with this neutral expression doctors get when they're about to deliver news. He slides the paper across his desk and points to a number with his pen. Your sperm count is excellent. Well above normal range, actually. Motility is in the top 25th percentile. No issues here that would prevent conception. In fact, based on these numbers, you should have no problem fathering children. I just stare at the numbers on the page. Sperm count, 72 million per milliliter. Reference range, 15 to 200 million. Motility, 68%. Reference range, 40 to 81%. Morphology, normal. Everything looks good. Better than good, actually. above average across the board, which means if there's a fertility problem, it's definitely not me. And given how hard Olivia tried to prevent me from getting tested, how many excuses she made, how she reacted when I agreed to it that night at dinner, that's not coincidence. I thank the doctor, take my results, fold them up and stick them in my center console, drive back to work in a complete daze. I've got this printout burning a hole in my truck, proof that I'm not the problem. Which means either she is or something else entirely is going on. And I'm starting to suspect it's the something else. That night, I make a decision. I need more information before I confront her about anything. I need to know what I'm actually dealing with. So I start documenting things. Not in a creepy way, just keeping track of patterns. I start a note on my phone with timestamps and observations. When she's on her phone, I note the time and duration. When she says she's going out, I note where she says she's going and when she gets back. I'm watching for inconsistencies, for patterns, for anything that might tell me what's really going on. I also set up our shared bank account to send me alerts for every transaction. It's technically my account too. We opened it together when we got married, so I'm not doing anything illegal, just staying informed about where our money is going. And what I find is interesting. There are charges I don't recognize. Nothing huge that would raise immediate red flags, but regular enough to form a pattern. Coffee shops I've never been to, always the same one in Scottsdale. Restaurants across town, nice places that we've never gone to together. And once, a hotel charge. The Phoenician in Scottsdale for one night. Date was back in June. I searched my text with Olivia for that date. June 15th. She told me she had a work conference. Said she'd be staying overnight because it was too far to drive back late. I remember because I'd ordered takeout for one that night and watched a game by myself. The charge was for $380. I look up the hotel rates for that night. Standard room is around $350. So she stayed overnight, but there was no dental conference that weekend. I checked the State Dental Association website. No conferences, no continuing education events. Nothing in June in Scottsdale. She lied about where she was and what she was doing. Add that to the growing pile of inconsistencies. Then I noticed the pharmacy charges. CVS on the 15th of every month. Walgreens on the 23rd sometimes. Target Pharmacy occasionally. All regular as clockwork. I check our insurance statements online, and that's when things get really interesting. She's been filling prescriptions I didn't know about. Monthly prescriptions that show up on our shared insurance but that she's never mentioned. I can't see what the prescriptions are for because of HIPAA privacy laws, even though I'm on the same insurance policy. But I can see they exist and they're being filled every month like clockwork. For someone supposedly desperate to get pregnant, she sure is taking a lot of mystery medication. I'm sitting on my couch at 2 a.m. on a Tuesday, going through months of bank statements and insurance records on my laptop, and pieces are starting to click into place. The evasiveness about doctors, the constant excuses, the way she panicked when I agreed to get tested. She's been lying about something major, and I need to know what. Here's where I probably should have just confronted her, demanded answers, put everything on the table. But I'm an engineer and I need data. I need proof. I need to know the full extent of what's happening before I make any moves. So I do something that's borderline questionable. But at this point, I'm past caring about etiquette. I call our insurance company the next day from my car during lunch. Tell them I'm trying to reconcile some medical bills and need to understand what prescriptions are being covered under my policy. The customer service rep says they can't tell me what my wife's prescriptions are directly because of privacy laws, but they can send me a breakdown of what categories of medications are being covered and the general billing information. The form shows up in my email 3 days later as a PDF attachment. I open it in my truck before heading into work, and there it is buried in the third page of dense insurance language and billing codes. Oral contraceptives. Generic category, birth control pills. Filled monthly since January 2022, right around when we supposedly started seriously trying for a baby. Same prescription, same dosage, filled at the same pharmacies every month like clockwork. I just sit there in my truck staring at my phone screen. The parking lot is filling up with people heading into the building for the morning shift. Someone honks at me to move because I'm taking up a spot near the entrance. I don't move. I just keep staring at those words on the screen. Birth control pills. Filled monthly. For 2 years. She's been on birth control this entire time. Every month going to the pharmacy, filling her prescription, taking her pills, and telling me we're trying to conceive. 2 years of temperature tracking and cycle apps and crying about not getting pregnant, and she's been actively preventing it the whole time. The level of deception is actually impressive in a sick way. She didn't just lie about one thing, she built this entire false narrative, created a whole production with apps and charts and tears and frustration. The stress, the emotional breakdowns, the suggestions that maybe I'm the problem, all of it calculated to keep me from finding out she never wanted kids at all. But here's what I can't figure out. Why? Why go through this elaborate charade? Why not just say she doesn't want kids? We could have dealt with that like adults. Could have gone to counseling, could have decided if that was a deal breaker, could have made informed choices about our future instead of me wasting 2 years thinking we were working towards something together. Unless there's something else going on. Unless the kids thing is just one piece of a bigger lie. Unless she needed to buy time for some reason I'm not seeing yet. I start thinking about that phone call I overheard. He still has no idea. No idea about what? The birth control? Or something more? The whole thing would have blown up if I'd gotten tested. Why? Because the doctor would have told me I'm fine, and then we'd have focused on her fertility and discovered the birth control? Or because something else would have been revealed? I decide I need to actually follow her. Yeah, I know how that sounds. It sounds paranoid and controlling and like something out of a bad movie. But at this point, I'm in too deep and I need answers. I need to know if my wife is just lying about wanting kids, or if there's a whole other layer to this that I'm not seeing. She drives to a coffee shop in Scottsdale, about 30 minutes from our house. Parks and goes inside. I park down the street and wait. 20 minutes later, she comes out. With a guy. They're laughing, standing too close. And when they get to his car, he kisses her. Not a friendly peck. A real kiss. The kind you give someone you're sleeping with. I take pictures. My hands are shaking, but I get several clear shots of them together. They stand there talking for another few minutes. Then she gets in her car and leaves. He gets in his and goes the opposite direction. I sit in my truck feeling like I've been punched in the chest. The fertility thing was bad enough, but this is a whole different level. She's been cheating on me. Probably the whole time we've been trying for kids. Maybe longer. I drive home and she's already there, putting away groceries like nothing happened. Asks if I want to help her make dinner. I say sure. We cook pasta together like a normal married couple while I'm dying inside. That night, lying in bed next to her, I make my plan. I'm not confronting her yet. I'm not tipping my hand. I'm going to document everything, get my evidence together, and then I'm going to talk to a lawyer before she even knows something's wrong. Monday morning, I call a divorce attorney. Not to file yet, just to consult. I bring all my documentation, the fertility test results, the insurance records showing birth control prescriptions, the bank statements showing suspicious charges, the photos from Saturday. The attorney is this woman named Patricia, who's been practicing family law for 20 years. She looks through everything with the expression of someone who's seen it all before. When she's done, she looks up at me and says, "You've got a strong case for fraud in the inducement. She made false representations about wanting children to induce you into marriage. That matters in Arizona." She also tells me to keep documenting. Get more evidence if I can. The more airtight the case, the better my position in the divorce. And definitely don't let on that I know anything until I'm ready to file. So I keep playing the part of the clueless husband. Keep sleeping in the same bed. Keep having dinner together. Keep pretending I believe her lies. It's the hardest thing I've ever done. I follow her 3 more times over the next month. Same guy every time. Sometimes they meet for coffee. Once they met at a park. Another time I followed them to that same hotel in Scottsdale. That was particularly fun. Sitting in my truck in the parking lot, knowing my wife was upstairs sleeping with someone else. I document all of it. Photos, dates, times, locations. I print out the bank statements showing the hotel charges she told me were work conferences. I get a certified copy of my fertility test results. I get a subpoena through my attorney for the pharmacy records showing her birth control prescriptions. By November 2023, I've got a file folder an inch thick with evidence. Patricia tells me we're ready. She drafts the divorce petition and we schedule a process server. The night before the server shows up, Olivia and I have dinner like always. She's telling me about her day, some annoying patient at work, normal stuff. I'm nodding and asking questions while thinking about how tomorrow her whole world is going to explode. The server catches her at her office the next day around 2 p.m. I know because I'm working from home and I see her car pull into the driveway at 2:45. She comes through the door in a rage, doesn't even close it behind her, just storms in holding the papers and throws them at me. They scatter across the living room floor. What is this? What the hell is this? I'm sitting on the couch with my laptop like it's a normal workday. Divorce papers. Thought that was obvious. You're filing for divorce? Out of nowhere? Without even talking to me first? Out of nowhere. Right. She's pacing now, her face red. This is insane. We've been married 3 years and you're just throwing it away because we haven't had kids yet? That's what this is about? I close my laptop and set it aside. Stand up. Look at her directly. Did you really think I'd never find out? She stops mid-pace. The anger drains from her face, and something else replaces it. Fear, maybe. Find out what? I walk to the kitchen counter where I've got my folder waiting. Thick, manila folder with tabs and dividers. Everything organized chronologically. I bring it back and drop it on the coffee table. That you've been on birth control for 2 years while telling me we're trying for a baby. That you've been sleeping with some guy in Scottsdale. That you've been lying about literally everything. I've never seen someone's face go through that many emotions in 10 seconds. Denial first, mouth opening to argue. Then shock when she realizes I actually know. Then anger. Then panic when it sinks in that this is real. She lunges for the folder, but I grab it first. I've got copies. Multiple copies. My attorney has copies. Everything's backed up digitally. You can't make this disappear. She sits down hard on the couch like her legs gave out. Stares at the folder in my hands. How long have you known? Does it matter? Yes, it matters. You've been lying to me too then. Pretending everything was fine. Playing some sick game. I have to laugh at that. I've been documenting your lies. There's a difference. Big difference, actually. She starts crying. Not the genuine kind. The manipulative kind she's been using for 2 years when her period supposedly showed up. The kind designed to make me feel guilty. We can fix this. We can go to counseling. I made mistakes, but we can work through this. People do it all the time. You didn't make mistakes. You built an entire false life. You lied about wanting kids, lied about trying to conceive, lied about being faithful. That's not mistakes. That's fraud. That's a calculated plan. You can't prove any of that. I tap the folder. Actually, I can. Pharmacy records showing 2 years of birth control prescriptions. Bank statements showing hotel charges you said were work conferences. My fertility test results showing I'm fine. Photos of you and him together. Dates, times, locations. It's all in here. And it's all going to be entered into evidence in court. Her face changes. The tears stop like I flipped a switch. That's when she switches tactics. Gets mean instead of sad. You were never good enough anyway. I settled for you because you were safe and boring. And I thought that's what I wanted. But you're just pathetic. You and your spreadsheets and your schedules and your need to plan everything 5 years in advance. Okay. The guy in Scottsdale is more of a man than you'll ever be. He doesn't need constant validation. He doesn't make spreadsheets for every little thing. He actually knows how to be spontaneous. He makes me feel alive instead of trapped. Does he know you're married? She goes quiet. Looks away. That's what I thought. Does he know you told me you were at work conferences while you were sleeping with him? Does he know you're on my health insurance? No response. Then she hits me with the nuclear option. Stands up, points at me. You're not man enough to be a dad anyway. I was doing you a favor by staying on birth control. Can you imagine you trying to raise a kid? You'd probably have them on a schedule by the time they're 6 months old. You'd suck all the joy out of their childhood with your rules and structure. I just look at her. Let that hang in the air. And there it is. The real you. She seems to realize she's gone too far. Tries to backpedal. I didn't mean that. I'm just upset. You're ambushing me with divorce papers and expecting me to be calm about it. You've been ambushing me with lies for 2 years. I think I'm entitled to be upset about that. The next few months are a blur of legal proceedings. She fights everything, tries to claim the evidence was obtained illegally, argues that the birth control was a private medical decision. Her attorney is aggressive, but Patricia is better. We end up in mediation first, trying to settle without going to trial. Olivia's acting like the victim, crying to the mediator about how I'm being vindictive and cruel. The mediator asks for my side, and I just slide my folder across the table. Everything you need is in there. Bank statements showing hotel charges she claimed were work trips, pharmacy records showing 2 years of birth control pills while telling me we were trying to conceive, photos of her with her boyfriend, timeline of every lie. The mediator goes through it all. When he's done, he looks at Olivia and says, I strongly suggest you take the settlement offer. She doesn't. She wants to fight it out in court, convinced she can somehow win sympathy from a judge. Patricia is thrilled because it means we get to make everything public record. The court date is in February 2024. We're in the courthouse and I'm in my best suit, looking like the responsible adult I am. Olivia's dressed like she's going to a funeral, playing up the devastated wife angle. Patricia presents our case methodically. The fertility fraud first, showing the timeline of false promises and active deception. Then, the financial evidence of the affair. Then, the photos. Each piece of evidence is labeled, documented, cross-referenced. The judge is this older guy who's clearly seen every divorce trick in the book. He's not buying Olivia's tears or her attorney's arguments about privacy. When her attorney tries to claim the pharmacy records shouldn't be admissible, The judge shuts it down. She made representations about trying to conceive. He's entitled to evidence showing those representations were false. The records are admissible. Olivia has to testify. Under oath, she admits to the birth control, admits to the affair, tries to frame it as a response to our marital problems, but Patricia tears that apart. When did these marital problems start? I don't know, maybe 2 years ago. Right around when you started taking birth control? I guess. And when did the affair start? About a year and a half ago. So you were lying about trying to conceive before the affair even started? She doesn't have a good answer for that. I get to testify too. Patricia asks me about the fertility test I took without telling Olivia. I explain about the conversation I overheard, about how she'd been deflecting every time I suggested we see a doctor. Did you feel you were being deceptive by getting tested without telling her? No. She'd been encouraging me to get tested, then discouraging me. I figured I'd just eliminate that variable quietly. And when you got the results showing you had no fertility issues, what did you think? That something else was going on. That her reluctance to see doctors wasn't about the cost or the stress. It was because she didn't want anyone to find out she was actively preventing pregnancy. The judge asks me directly, why didn't you confront her immediately when you found the birth control evidence? Because I needed to know the full extent of the lies. If she'd lie about something that fundamental, what else was she lying about? Turned out, a lot. After 2 days of testimony, the judge makes his ruling. The house goes to me since I'd owned it before the marriage and made all the mortgage payments. She gets her car and her personal belongings, no spousal support because of the fraud. The judge actually uses that word, fraud. Says her misrepresentation about wanting children was material to the marriage and constitutes grounds for a fault-based divorce. In Arizona, that matters for asset division. He also orders her to pay half my attorney fees, which is rare, but Patricia had argued that her deception made the divorce more expensive than it needed to be. The judge agreed. Walking out of that courthouse, I feel lighter than I have in years. Olivia's crying in the hallway with her attorney. Her boyfriend isn't there. Guess he didn't want to deal with the messy reality of what he'd been part of. Patricia shakes my hand. That's one of the more clear-cut cases of fraud I've seen. You documented everything perfectly. I'm an engineer. Documentation is kind of my thing. She laughs. Well, it served you well here. The divorce is finalized in March 2024. She's got 2 weeks to move out. I change the locks the day after she leaves and find out she took some kitchen stuff that was technically mine. But whatever. Small price to pay. Her parents called me 3 days after the court ruling. Frank apologized for raising a liar, said he had no idea she was capable of that level of deception. Janet cried on the phone and told me I deserved better. They sent back the Christmas gifts I'd gotten them last year with a note saying they couldn't keep them in good conscience. I told them to keep the gifts, that this wasn't their fault. We don't talk anymore, but there's no bad blood. The boyfriend situation imploded fast. Found out through a mutual acquaintance that he dumped her 2 weeks after the divorce finalized. Turns out he was married too. His wife found out about the affair when Olivia started calling him after she moved into her apartment. He blocked her number and apparently threatened a restraining order when she showed up at his office. She tried calling me in April. I didn't answer. She left a voicemail asking if we could talk, saying she wanted to explain everything, that the court proceedings didn't tell the whole story. I deleted it without listening to the whole thing. She sent an email a week later with the subject line, "Please read this." I sent it to Patricia, who told me to block her and document everything. Blocked her on everything that night. Guys, we are so close to hit 100,000 subscribers on this channel. If you are not subscribed to the channel, please consider subscribing. It really helps hit that 100,000 mark. Thanks for making this dream come true.